1 month.
Good morning, students. Can you able to see the screen PDF file?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So our subject is, what is our subject? Who is the representative for this class? A session, B session? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, who is the class representative for A session and B session? Shreya? Okay, answer or attendance. Shrikar?
Present, ma'am.
Yeah, Manideep, Ashok, Kalini.
Present, ma'am.
Rakshit Jain. Prathamesh, Shreya.
Present, ma'am. Prathamesh.
Arshit, Preetham, Vishnu Reddy, Vijay, Mani Manasa.
Ma'am, Mani Manasa present, ma'am.
Okay, I am noting down the attendance sheet. Akif, what is the name? 110 CS 110 Akif.
Mohammed Akif, ma'am.
Okay. Vishnu Reddy, Vijay, Mani Manasa, Radhika, Rahul Kumar.
Ma'am, Radhika present.
Ma'am, Rahul Kumar present.
Vishnu Reddy, Vijay, Sandosh Kumar.
Rakshit Jain present.
Okay. Amina Begum, Devika, Menon.
Ma'am, Atish present. Present.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Sai-
Shreyas present.
Ma'am, Harshit present, ma'am.
Okay, I noted down.
Ma'am, Shreyas present, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am, Anil Sai present, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
I noted down in the attendance sheet. I think
Santosh present.
yeah, Santosh Kumar present.
Ma'am, Anil Sai.
All present, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah, once
Ma'am,
again.
Devika, ma'am.
Devika, Menana.
Yes, ma'am.
Rakshit
Yeah.
Jain present.
Yeah, more present. Those who are joined.
Rakshit Jain, ma'am.
Present, ma'am.
Yes.
62 Prakash.
USN 12 Bana Prakash present, ma'am.
Yes, I'm more present.
USN 13 present, ma'am.
Ma'am, USN 80.
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, USN 62.
Yeah, 62 also present.
Ma'am, USN 83 present, ma'am.
Yes, I'm more present. Okay, I will again. I will end of the session 5 minutes before. I will mark attendance. Okay, so our subject is advances in DBMS. So it's an elective subject, and our subject code is 18 CSDE 612. Already we discussed TLEP, and we covered module 1 as well as module 2 topics. And when is your OET 1? I think your OET 1 is scheduled next week. Your OET 2, sorry, 1 starts from 18th April. And our subject advances in DBMS is scheduled on, I think, 20th April. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. What is the timing?
9, ma'am, morning.
Morning 9 to how many hours? 2 hours or 3 hours? 1.5 hours?
Ma'am, 1.5 hours.
Yeah, 1.5 hours. From morning 9:30 to 10:30, 11. I think so. 11 up to 11 a.m. And you can upload. It's an online descriptive, no? You know the type of questions. You know the format, the template. I think you got the information from your class teacher. So your OET 1 is an online descriptive exam scheduled on 20th April 2022 from morning 9:30 to 11 o'clock. You can start uploading from 11 and it will accept up to 11:15 or 11:10. Okay, it's an 1.5 hours exam. Your syllabus is module 1 and module 2. We already covered the topics. Today we will revise once again the topics, as well as we will see which type of questions will be asked, how the questions will be framed, or how the questions will be framed. And so usually 20%, 25% of questions will be indirect questions or thinking based questions will be asked. So the topics for your OET 1 is the module 1, object-relational database. Say the topics are motivating examples, structured data types, data design for ORDBMS, OODBMS, comparing RDBMS, OODBMS, and ORDBMS. And the second module, disk storage, disk file structures, and hashing techniques. So here we have the topics like secondary storage devices, buffering, placing file records on disk, operations on files, files of unordered records, heap files, files of ordered records, and sorted files. We got the template from the exam committee. I'm showing you the blank template. Okay. So can you able to see the OET internal test 1 blank, template? I think previous semesters we had somewhat different templates. So I thought of sharing the template with you. So can you able to see the template? So this is the blank template. So from this you will get an idea about, so you'll have the semester, February, June, internal test 2022, course code. Marks is for, you need to write the exam for 45 marks and you will be given 90 minutes, 1.5 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes. Timing will be morning session or afternoon session. Morning session means 9:30 to 11. And answer all question. Each question carries 15 marks. So this will be your pattern. You got the idea? So you need to answer all the questions. Each question carries 15 marks. So say if the first question, we have A, B session, subsections. Each question may carry 7.5 marks. Got the idea? How the questions will be? So you'll be having 6 questions and you are given internal choice. You can answer first question or second question. Out of 3 or 4, you can answer anyone. Out of 5 or 6, you can answer anyone. So it's for 45 marks. Each question, 15 marks. So you will get, you need to answer. How many questions you need to answer now out of 6? Now, how many questions you need to answer? So out of first 2 questions, you can answer any one question. Out of 3 and 4, you need to answer any one question. Out of 5 and 6, you need to answer any one question. Each carries 15, 15, 15 marks. Total 45 marks. Okay. So already we discussed the topics. Once again, we will revise the topics. So if you take the first module, we have important topics. The questions will be asked from, so there will be equal distribution of questions from all the topics. Say for example, you may get a question from ORDBMS, you may get a question from structured data type, you may get a question from comparing RDBMS, because you will be having 6 questions. 3 questions will be asked from module 1 and 3 questions will be asked from module 2. And the same way, we need to ask the questions from each and every important topic. So if you divide the module 1 into 2 off, so you'll be getting 1.5 questions from first half, again another 1.5 questions from second half. It means that number of topics are very less. So definitely you will be having a question from each and every topic. Say for example, if you take the sample question, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Yes. Say for example, if you take a question, say we will ask what is the major difference between ORDBMS and OODBMS? Explain with an example. Or we can ask a question, say we are dealing with OODBMS. So this OODBMS, it's the same as DBMS. It's a superset of DBMS. In a DBMS, we are using SQL. The queries will be processed through structured query language. So the same way in OODBMS, we are using OQL. So in a DBMS, we are using SQL. In OODBMS, we are using OQL. And in SQL, we have 3 types of commands like DDL, DML, and DCL. The same way in OODBMS, we are using 3 types of commands, OQL, OCL, and OML. So they may ask you one question, what is OQL and how the OQL is different from SQL. The same way they will ask you an example, like what is the motivating factor we are going for unstructured databases? What are the open source softwares available for representing unstructured and structured database data? Or they may ask you, given an social media data analytics, which type of database system is suitable, and design an database table, choose a database table which can be suitable for OODBMS kind of data. So you need to understand what is structured data type, what is unstructured data type, what is the database design, how the database design is done in traditional databases like RDBMS and DBMS. What are the query languages available like SQL, DDL, DML, and DCL. And the same way, how it is different from the object-oriented databases. In object-oriented databases, what are the query languages we are using like OQL, OCL, OML, and ODL. Those kind of representation, the topics are very less only, you just you can overall understand. If you get a clear picture, overall picture, then while studying the topics, you can easily differentiate. Simply, if you go through all the PPT modules, you can read and understand, and we are expecting the answers from your own point of view. You no need to write the definitions because it's a common, almost the topics are generalized. There is no much definitions or much theoretical, no fixed definitions. So you can understand and you can write the answer on your own. So the topics also very less only. So if you take the module 2, any doubt with respect to module 1, I am giving you the overall idea. Then we'll go through the PPTs. Any doubt with respect to the generalized topics of module 1? Okay, we will go to the second module. So here, if you take the second module, we have the basic concepts of disk storage, basic file structures, and hashing concepts. So here we are starting with the introduction. What is disk, the primary memory, secondary memory? What are the examples for primary memory? What are the example storage devices available for secondary memory? What is the major difference between primary memory, RAM and ROM? And what are the secondary storage devices available like a floppy disk, magnetic disk, CDs, DVDs, your pen drives, flash drives, SSD, all those things. What is the memory range? And what is the access time, cost? And in what way one kind of storage device is different from another one, whether it's following sequential access or a random access. All those factors we discussed. Then we discussed the buffering of blocks. So buffering means it is a buffer memory. Buffer memory is in between primary memory to secondary memory. It's based on the architecture or the block diagram of your computer. You take the block diagram of computer, you will have input devices, output devices, and the central processing unit. Within the central processing unit, we'll have CPU, arithmetic and logic unit, ALU, and memory unit. So within memory unit, we have the primary memory. What is the name of primary memory? RAM or ROM? So you can take the example as your mobile. So in all your mobile phones, we are having primary memory and secondary memory, and you are using RAM, ROM, as well as we are using the memory card also. So the typical memory card is secondary memory. The RAM is your, so you'll have your mobile may be 16 GB, 8 GB RAM and 128 GB ROM. And additionally, it can support another 128 memory card. And then placing the file records on disk. So while storing the data in the disk in the sense magnetic disk or magnetic drum. So you should, so how we can store and retrieve the data in the disk storage. Then operations on files. So files means we know we are using the files in C, C++ and all programming languages, as well as in SQL, PL/SQL, we are using files. So files means we are storing the data in a file name in a permanent, so the data will be available permanently. So file is a memory place where we can store our data. So if you want to use a file in your programming, we need to create a file with a file name. The file will be opened in read mode, write mode, seek mode, updation. So we can perform the file operations like read, write, create, read, write, seek, access. So operations. And the same way, if you want to store the data in unordered records. Records means the tables with rows and columns. So the rows and columns is called a record. If the data is in unordered form, in that case, how we can store the data in the files? Then files of ordered records. So if the data is already sorted in alphabetical order or numerical order, ascending order or descending order, it will be easy for us to store the files. We can easily store according to the index or according to the order 1, 2, 3. We can store and access. The same way, other primary file organizations. So everything deals with basic file structures and disk storage. So from this also, they may ask you what are the secondary storage devices available and which storage device is more suitable for storing the students' records. They may ask you one question like, what is the role of buffer memory and how the blocks of data can be stored in buffer memory. They may ask you what are the basic file operations, explain in detail. Or they may ask you how the unordered records and ordered records can be stored in files. What is the major difference between unordered records and ordered records? They may ask you one question, what are the basic primary file organization techniques available? Or they may raise a question, how buffering of blocks can be organized? What is the role of buffer manager. So these kind of questions can be asked. So we will ask the questions. The questions may be twisted or indirect question, but the answers are from your. We expect the answers. We won't ask anything out of syllabus. You can take the answers from your PPTs. Or you can write, if you understood the concepts very well, you can write the answers on your own words. The screen is visible. So we will discuss the module 1 topics. So any doubts so far, the overall idea about the module 1 and module 2? Okay, we'll start with the module 1 topics. So your module 1 is object database systems. If you have any doubt in between the topics or which kind of questions will be asked from the particular topic, you can raise the question in between, because we need to revise both the modules. I think your class is up to 11:10 to 12. We have another half an hour. So the topics in our first module are motivating example, structured data types, database design for ORDBMS, OODBMS, comparing RDBMS, OODBMS, and ORDBMS. So these are the topics. So in the introduction part, we discussed what is object-oriented database. And say the database systems that were based on object data. So if you are storing the objects as your data in your table, we will go for we need a special database system called OODBMS, because the objects cannot be stored in traditional database systems like RDBMS or DBMS. And the databases are fundamental components in many software systems, because the backend is database in any application. Because if you take any mini project or major project or any application, we need to store the data permanently for future future usage. Once you run the program, if you give some input, if you show some output on the screen, if you come out from the program, the result will not be showed in permanently. So if you want to store your inputs and output stored permanently, we need to use databases, tables, or we need to use file structures. So another reason for creation of object-oriented database is the vast increase in the use of object-oriented programming languages. So nowadays, if you take any application, app, or any software or web page, all are following the object-oriented programming language constructs. Say any application, say online railway reservation system, or if you take banking system, ATM system. So your account details, your balance, your transaction details, everything should be stored permanently for a long time. Otherwise, the next transaction cannot be done properly. So we need to use database in the backend to store all your data permanently. The same way you're booking for a flight. So your passengers details, your flight details, your travel details should be stored permanently to check in, to generate the boarding pass, everything. So databases plays an important role in any application. Usually the databases are called backend. So the front interface will be user-friendly. Front end will be having processing module, and we'll have the backend. So we'll have the layers of application. Front end, it may be user-friendly, any design. Processing, we'll use any programming language. In the backend, we'll use the database tables like SQL, MySQL, or Sybase, FoxPro, or we can make use of other NoSQL, Neo4j. So we will make use of some backend tool as database system. If you take the introduction part, we discussed here the relational database system and how it is different from a DBMS, and what is the major difference between DBMS, RDBMS, and OODBMS. So we can say DBMS is the subset, RDBMS is the superset, and OODBMS is the superset. And we have two types of object-oriented databases, object-oriented database and object-relational database. So the object-oriented is called OODBMS. The object-relational is called ORDBMS. And why we are going for object-oriented databases means the traditional database systems cannot process object. We cannot store and retrieve the objects and classes and other audio, video, and unstructured data using traditional database. The traditional database system will not support the inheritance, object identity, and user-defined data types. And the BLOB, binary large object, say you are storing an audio song in your database. So that cannot be stored in normal DBMS. But if you go for ORDBMS using MongoDB or Neo4j, there are some open source softwares available for storing and processing unstructured data, like audio, video, images, and other big, very large database objects. So the binary large object concept is not available in DBMS and RDBMS. So we need OODBMS that is supported by BLOB objects. The same way in OODBMS, we have the semantic operations we can perform along with the syntax. Say in the DBMS, we will perform the where class, select star from student table where the student registration number is 19MT or BT1001, like that. But if you want to search along with the semantics, along with the meaning of the constraint, that is not supported by DBMS, but it's supported by ORDBMS. And the structured data types and inheritance, polymorphism, front functions, operator overloading, operator overriding, virtual functions, that can be implemented in ORDBMS. These concepts, OODBMS concepts, is not available in traditional DBMS. And manipulating new kinds of data, say the user-defined methods, operations on structured types, reference types is available in ORDBMS. The traditional relational database systems cannot process complex data types, and it cannot support large amount of data. It can process only the typical or basic data types like integer, strings, and characters. And if you take the structured data types like a row, a collection of array, list of, set of, these kind of data types is available in ORDBMS. The same way bag of and set, list, array, dictionary, these kind of collection data types, user-defined types is available in ORDBMS. And we have object and object identity available in ORDBMS through the object ID. It's a unique ID, OID. Through that, we can access any object from very large database. And if you take a database design for ORDBMS, usually we are following, we are creating the, say if you are storing a video in your ORDBMS, the video can be stored through the object ID. Say we have the PID, through that we can differentiate one object from another object. So it is an integer, and we'll have the timestamp when the video starts and when the time, how long the video, whether it is in 30 minutes video or 10 minutes video, what time to what time. Say it starts by 11 o'clock and ends by 11:50. So those data can be stored. Say the video of integer, the ID is integer type, and which camera we are using, and video. This video can be the complete video of 30 minutes can be uploaded using binary large object data type. And the ORDBMS is designed in such a way that it can handle structured types such as list, and along with the location, along with the tuples and complete video information. Everything can be stored by using ORDBMS. And if you take the object identity, through the object identity, each object will have its own unique ID. Through that, we can perform any operation like deletion, updation, sharing of sharing the data, clippings, everything is possible. And in ORDBMS, storage overhead can be, we can overcome the storage overhead by using the buffering or by using cloud, and the clustering, grouping the data based on the clusters. These are educational videos, these are entertainment videos, these are commercial videos. Like that, we can cluster the objects. And we are making use of the foreign key and the reference key. Using an OID, object ID, to refer an object is similar to using an foreign key. So here the object ID plays an important role. Through the object ID, we can differentiate one object from another object. Through the object ID, we can refer the object in other tables also as like a foreign key, what we use in SQL. And extending the ER model, entity relationship model can be easily generated by using ORDBMS that supports structured attributes like sets, list, array, attribute values. So if you take the major OODBMS, it supports programming language with persistent objects. The DBMS with object orientation supports, they can do all the programming aspects like creating a class, creating objects, creating inherited functions, base class, derived class, creating friend functions, virtual functions. Everything is possible with OODBMS. And a standard has been developed by Object Database Management Group, ODMG. So this ODMG concept is used in UML. I think OMG, Object Management Group, Rational Rows Corporation, they are the inventors of OQL. Object Query Language is contributed by ODMG Management Group. This OQL is similar to SQL. Here we are using structured, here we are using object query language, here structured query language. And the syntax and semantics of SQL and OQL both are same. Here you will use only tuples and entities, here we will use objects. And OQL allows us to aggregate operations like count to be applied to the list of compute the length of the list. Also supports reference types, path expressions, abstract data types, and SQL type nested queries. So we can have nested queries. We can have more than one class, more than one constraint using OQL. So if you take the ODMG data model, so the ODMG data model is the framework for object definition language. So here in object definition language, definition means a declaration part. So we'll mention the attributes, that is the data members, relationships, how one entity is related with another entity, and methods. What are the functions we can apply on the objects and attributes. So the attributes have an atomic type or a structured type. So here the attributes can be a single atomic, say the student ID can be an attribute. The same way, the consolidated mark sheet can also be an attribute. So we can have atomic data type as well as structured type. So the structured type in the sense, student first semester can be an it is a structure. That structure can be used in another class also. So here we can have relationships have a type that is either a reference to an object or a collection of such references. So the relationship between one entity to another entity can be easily represented. Say the student ID belongs to a CSE student and he belongs to 6th semester. He belongs to the elective of RDBMS. So like that, each and every entity or each and every attribute in a class will have its own relationship. Methods or functions that can be applied to objects of the class. So we can calculate the internal mark for a particular student. We can calculate the OET mark, assignment mark. So we can have separate functions. And the keyword interface is used to define a class. So we'll use the interface. So we'll create a class, then we will create an object, and we will invoke the methods on the data members. And if you want to say this, when the student is in first year, we'll have the only one class. When the student enters into second year, we'll create third semester, another member function. When he goes to fourth semester, we'll create another derived function, derived class. So the basic elements like name, USN number, date of birth, department, those things will be fixed in the base class. When he enters into next semester, the additional subjects will be added through the derived classes. So here we are discussing about the object query language. It is proposed by Object Database Management Group, was deliberately designed to have syntax similar to SQL. The syntax and semantics of SQL and OQL both are same in order to make it easy for users familiar with SQL to learn OQL. So if you know SQL very well, you can easily write OQL commands because the syntax, format, schema, everything is same in both SQL and OQL. It supports distinct having, explicit nesting. So any doubts so far? I think it's disconnected, getting connected. Any doubts so far? So next this particular slide gives you a difference between RDBMS and ORDBMS, the major difference. Here we are checking the similarities between, so the major difference between OODBMS and ORDBMS is here object plus relational database management system. We cannot perform any object-oriented programming attribute constructs like polymorphism, inheritance, virtual functions, friend functions, derived classes. That more programming we cannot do here ORDBMS. But if you go for OODBMS, it's totally based on object orientation. So it starts from classes, objects, inheritance, polymorphism, everything we can do like Java and Python. So the differences between these two they given. And in OODBMS, we can embed the code. We can take the code from C++, Java, or Smalltalk. They are object-oriented languages. Those codes can be embedded in OODBMS. And if you take the inheritance, we know very well, allows us to create new types. That is extending the existing types. So we'll have a base class. From the base class, we'll create inherited and derived classes, child classes. And the child classes can make use of the base class functions and attributes. And the derived classes can override the base class functions. So what is operator over? There is a major difference between operator overloading and operator overriding. So if the derived class functions overrides, if the same function is available in base class as well as in derived class, whenever we call the function, say you're calling a function called display, the same display function is available in base class B1, and you have the same display function in derived class D1. If you call the function display in your main program, always the derived class function display will be executed. It means that the derived class function overrides base class function. So that is called operator overriding. And we know very well operator overloading means usually the basic arithmetic operations like plus, minus, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication will perform the basic operations on basic data types. So we can apply add 2 integers, we can subtract 2 integers, we can multiply 2 integers. So that is the basic operation of arithmetic or any relational or logical operators. But if you try to apply the same basic operations on classes and objects, so you try to add 2 student objects, or you try to add 2 employee objects, the objects cannot be added. If you want to make the objects to be added, we will go for, we'll give additional work to the operator plus. So we need to redefine the operator plus or minus. So that by writing the separate object operator overloading function for plus, we can make use of the operator overloading function to add 2 students objects. Say if a student first semester marks to be added with second semester, third semester to calculate the overall CGPA. So we need to write operator overloaded function for plus, so that the first semester object, second semester object, third semester object, of the same student, the CGPA can be added. We can calculate the overall or cumulative CGPA. So there is a major difference between operator overloading and operator overriding. So these are the topics we discussed so far in the part 1. So the most of the questions will be like, what is the motivating factor for using or creating object relational database management system? What is the drawback of traditional database management system? And what is the structured data type and what is unstructured data type? Which kind of data can be stored in structured data type, which kind of databases we need to store structured data type? What is unstructured data? How we can process and store unstructured data using object-oriented databases? And what do you mean by ORDBMS? How it is different from OODBMS? And what is the difference between SQL and OQL? What are the data types supported by ORDBMS? Compare and contrast to the main difference between RDBMS, OODBMS, ORDBMS with any 4 points. So like that, they will ask you a few questions. So you go through the topics. If you have any doubt, you send me the questions in WhatsApp or in the next class. So can you able to see the PPT screen? The screen is visible to you all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the module 2 is disk storage and basic file structures. So the last 2 classes we were discussing about the disk storage and basic file structures. So these are the topics. So initially we started with the primary storage. The primary storage represents the CPU. The memory is available in central processing unit. The memory is available in CPU is called main memory and cache memory. And if you take the secondary storage, the additional storage devices like magnetic disk, magnetic drum, CDs, DVDs. And if you take the hierarchy of storage devices, primary storage plays an important role in all manner because the cost is very high, access time is very low, efficiency is very high. Within primary storage, we have static RAM and dynamic RAM. So the RAM is the primary storage where it is volatile in nature. Once the power is off, the content will not be available. And if you take the secondary storage, we have CD-ROMs, DVDs. It's available in different memory size, KBs, megabytes, gigabyte, terabyte, petabytes. And if you take the flash memory, we are using USBs and flash memories and the SSD cards. And usually the flash memories are made up of NAND or NOR gates. I think you might have studied flip-flops, JK flip-flop, so many flip-flops you might have studied in ECE, digital logic design. So the flip-flop is the memory cell where we can store a single bit of data, 0 or 1. And the flip-flop is made up of gates. We know the basic gates are AND gate, OR gate, NOT gate. AND means logical multiplication, OR means logical addition, NOT means complement. NAND means in complement of AND gate. NOR means complement of OR gate. So usually the flash drives, flash memories are made up of NAND gates because if you create the memory cells by using NAND gates, it supports large amount of memory space with efficient access and usage ranging from 8 GB to 64 GB. And most of the personal digital assistants, MP3 players, MP4 players, cameras are using the NAND gate based flash memories. And magnetic tapes are tape storage. It is in the form of sequential access. So this gives you a clear idea about the capacity, access time, maximum bandwidth, and price range. And the storage organization of databases. So if you are storing your data permanently, we need to create a table. The table will have, based on the various entities, we need to say if you are creating a student ID with the 10 digits. So 10, each digit, each integer, 1 byte of memory will be allotted. Say you are storing a name of the student with the 40 characters. Each character data type, 1 byte will be allotted. And if you take SSDs or alternatives for magnetic disk, so the magnetic disk is having its own efficiency because we can store the data for a long time. Storing, accessing, processing, seeking the data in magnetic disk is it gives maximum benefit. Efficiency also very high. Now, alternative to magnetic disk, nowadays we are using SSD. So the SSD nowadays, many of the mobile tabs and laptops are coming with SSD flash drives. Then we discussed heap files, sorted file, hashed file, B trees, and buffering of blocks. So buffering means and temporary storage where we can store the data before processing. So you might have studied the execution of say you are executing an instruction A plus B, an arithmetic operation. So the operation will be performed in this ALU, arithmetic and logic unit, in different stages. So it's having its stages like fetch, prefetch, fetch, execute, and store. Prefetch means we will declare all the variables, we will allocate memory, we will initialize initial value. Fetch means we will take the variables A and B and we will assign the values to the A and B. Execute means the A and B values will be stored in the registers in CPU, arithmetic and logic unit, accumulator and data register. The actual process will happen, A plus B will happen, and the result will be stored in the accumulator. Again, once the value result is obtained, again the result will be stored back to the from primary memory to register, accumulator register to the data register, or from buffer to the secondary storage device. So the buffer is an memory where it places an in between, say the registers are there in the CPU. The data before transferring to registers that will be stored in the buffer memory. So it is in between the secondary storage to the primary storage. So the diagram shows you how the sequence of events happening while executing any operation, A and B, C and B. So we will take the value of A, then it will be transferred to register. Then we will take the value of B. The actual process will happen. The time slot is given. During the first clock pulse, we will access the A value. During the second clock pulse, we will take the value of B. Then the third clock pulse. So say on, off, sequence of pulses. So the time slot. So during the first second, what will happen? During the second, what's happening? So it will take the value of A, fetch, process A, process B, and do the process, clock pulses. Then if you are using buffer memory in between the primary memory to secondary memory, what is the role of buffer? To handle and to manage the buffer, we are using a buffer manager. What is the role of buffer manager? What is the size of buffer manager? So the buffer managers are mainly used to avoid the primary memory's time usage and efficiency. So if the data is ready in buffer, that can be transferred to the primary memory registers. The processing will be done. Once the processing is over, the result will be again transferred back to the buffer. Then from buffer to the secondary storage, so that the usage waiting time of primary memory can be saved. Why? Because the primary memory storage, accessing, processing is very costly compared to the secondary and primary, buffer memory. So why we are using buffer manager? What is the goal of using buffer manager? What is the role of buffer manager is clearly stated. So the buffer manager, using of buffer manager is an important topic. So we are using a pin count. So how many times we are using a particular instruction? So if a particular instruction or a particular data or process is used often, that will be in always active state. So the pin count will make sure, say for example, you are using in your mobile, there may be more 15 applications, but you will be using the WhatsApp more than 20 times per day. The same way you may be using the Gmail 10 times per day. The same way you may be using other applications, like you may install the LinkedIn. You may access the LinkedIn for 1 or 2 times. You may have other applications like Upgrade or edX, Coursera. It may be installed, but you may not be accessed it for a long time. Even SWAYAM courses also, you may be rarely you will be using. So a particular application will be used often. Every 1 hour you may check the WhatsApp, or every half an hour you may check the WhatsApp. The frequency count of accessing a particular application is very more, means that particular application will be always kept active. If you enabled the what is that, notifications, then the particular application will be always active. So that the same way the pin count will maintain how long, how often we are accessing a particular application or a particular data. So the same way a dirty bit, which is initially set to 0 for all pages, but it is set to 1 whenever the page is updated by any application program. So if a particular, so we are using a data called dirty bit. Say, I think you might have studied in registers, flag register, auxiliary carry register, zero flag, carry flag, sign flag, parity flag. So if an end of the result, if the result of the process arithmetic operation is 0, the 0 flag will be set. If the result of an arithmetic operation is minus, the parity flag will be set. So like that, a separate count called bit, dirty bit is maintained to know how often we are accessing an data or table. So you can, the same way in buffer, we are using some buffer replacement strategies. I think you might have studied in operating system also. Least recently used clock policy, first in, first out, most recently used. So these replacement policies are used in buffers, so that the often used data or often used application or often used tables will be active always. That will be that can be accessed to buffer, and that will be transferred to registers, and the processing efficiency can be improved. And placing file records on disk. So the records and record types. Say data is usually stored in the form of records. So if you have a data, if I have the data about the student in your class, so I will maintain just by having the user number, I cannot do anything. Just by having the name of the student, I cannot do any process. So I need the complete data about a particular student. What is his sequence, user number, name, which year he is, which semester he is, what are the subjects he is chosen. So I need a complete data, a column of data about the student. A row of data is called record. Each and every column is called tuple. So in a database tables, we are storing the student data in the form of records, a row of value. And in files, we have fixed length files and varying length files. Fixed length files, the size is fixed, and we have to store and process the entire memory space will be allotted. If you are storing very less amount of data, the unused spaces will be wasted. If you go for varying length record, according, say if I am storing and I am allocating 40 characters to store and student name. But if the student name is having only 10 characters, the remaining 30 characters will be wasted. The same way, if I allocate student name 40 characters for all 60 students, so for each student, I am wasting 30 characters. So it may go up to 30 into 60. Large amount of memory will be wasted. So if you go for varying length records, according to the data what we are storing, length of the student name along with 1/0 will be stored in the end of the string with the /0 will be stored, will be allotted for the particular field. So you can read and understand these concepts. So how the records are stored. So here, name, SSN number, social security number, salary, job code, department, it is a record. Each field is called tuple. And we are using block. Block is nothing but unit of data transferred between disk and memory. Say if I am storing all the students attendance today. So today almost 41 students are present. I need to enter the all 41 students present absent data into the disk. So I have an table. I have an Excel sheet where all the students' name is there. I will update today's attendance in a column where all the 41 students will be present, the remaining students will be absent. So a block of data or unit of data about today's class will be stored or updated in the disk. Usually in case of banking sector, every week, every month, they will update the data about the customers' transactions. They will create monthly reports, weekly reports, or if you are asking a transaction report for the last 6 months or 1 year, they will retrieve a block of data. So here, while storing the block of data, we can use the spanned records or unspanned record. Here the diagram shows you this is the unspanned one. So there is no connectivity. So if the block size is more, we are dividing the block into 6 blocks. The first 3 blocks are stored in one portion of the disk. The remaining 3 blocks are stored in another part, but the connectivity is missing. So this is called unspanned. So if you are making a connectivity like linked list, the last record will have the address of the next record to be accessed. So here we are making an connectivity. So like here we'll have the address of record 4. So this is called spanned one. And while allocating the file blocks in disk, it can be a continuous allocation or linked list allocation or indexed allocation. Linked list means we'll have the predecessor and the successor link address.
Ma'am.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but we have another class.
Yes. Yeah. We are end of the. So you can just go through the file operations like read, write, insert, delete. So these are the topics. I think we have one more class on, I think Thursday 9 to 9:50. That time also we'll discuss some important questions and other missed topics. Okay. So if you are having any free session, I think tomorrow, day after tomorrow, is holiday for you or working day? Or you people are available? I think 14, 15. Please check with your calendar of events. If you are holiday, so if you have any doubt, you can call me anytime. You can post me the message in WhatsApp, our class WhatsApp group. Okay, already I shared unit 1, unit 2 on the bridge course, TLEP, syllabus, everything. You please go through the topics, all our basic topics only. You will get the questions from the syllabus only. If you have any doubt, please, those who are not answered so far, attendance, please mention your attendance in the chat box and you can leave the class. I think there are 41 students. I will try to retrieve the data from the attendance. Okay, we go through the topics. If you have any doubt, we can have a doubt clarification session on Thursday. I think 15th, 9 to 9:50. All of you posted your attendance. Those who answered your attendance, you can leave the class. Okay, shall we end the meeting? Jayasurya, Balaji, Nitish, Dakshit, Jain, Prathamesh, Santosh Kumar S, Hossein, Olivia. Have you mentioned your attendance in the chat box? Okay, we'll end the class.